Does anyone else on here prefer not to prepare for interviews? I feel like I've seen a bunch of interview-related posts lately, for obvious reasons that don't need to be explained. But I always read through them and am shocked with just how much preparation some people are putting into what sometimes amounts to 30 minutes of standard questions from potential future coworkers. Am I the only one that prefers to go into interviews with a clear mind, without rehearsed lines that I would fumble over trying to recall? Not to say that if it was a super specialized role that I wouldn't at least brush up on a particular topic. But I know my work experience. I know the roles and responsibilities I performed. I personally feel like it's easier for me to just naturally answer questions in an interview without it being a generic response. It also gives me the ability to go with the flow of the interview and oftentimes go way off course because I answered a question one way that opened up an entirely new path for the interview to go. And had I rigorously prepared for the interview to go 1, 2, 3, I never would have been able to fluently and naturally just went off course. I can't be the only one, right? And for what it's worth, this has worked for me. And worked well. I'm just myself. Nothing more. Nothing less. But my potential employers leave knowing exactly who I am, and I feel like that leaves little doubt about what I can actually do in the role I'm applying for.
Yeah, so I'll say that I don't think it's good to say don't prepare for interviews. I think that I get the point that this person is making. But I think that there is a bare minimum of what you need to do to prepare for an interview. So, for example, researching the company, knowing generally what the company does, that's called preparing for an interview. And then also just having a general idea of what your stories are for the typical interview questions. I think that that's also a good thing. So, talking about a time that you worked with somebody, we just listened to a bunch of really good advice. So, have your stories prepared on common interview questions, and you don't have to know them word for word, but just knowing generally what you want to talk about, I think is good because that way you're not spending time fumbling for a story and trying to think of a story. You can just spend more time in the interview just, I don't know, talking about getting to know each other better and kind of figuring out what you want, like, or don't like about that company. But no, I get it. Don't rehearse your don't don't have every single word down for exactly what you're going to say for each question, but generally have those stories queued so that you can tell the most impactful story. I think that you can come across better whenever you are able to tell the most impactful story, and you don't have to say it the same way every single time. But yeah, no, you have to prepare for interviews. So know your stories and know the company and the people that you're interviewing with. Maybe even do a research on the person that's your interviewer, so you can figure out some common threads that you can bring up between yourself and them in the interview. So, no, I'd say not preparing, going in raw for an interview is not ideal. I wouldn't recommend doing that. So, um, yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that. So, um, next question. No, because no, I don't not prepare for interviews. I do prepare. I did prepare. I did a lot of prep for my interviews, my most recent
So
interviews.
much
All
for
right.
watching this segment of the Engineering Success Podcast. If you liked it, make sure to check out the other videos down below that are recommended to you. And if you really like the podcast, make sure to subscribe right down there in the middle. Really appreciate it. It's free to you and helps us a lot out. And last but not least, the best way to help the show grow is to comment down below. So leave your comment if you have any thoughts about this segment.
Because I ain't chasing payments, still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.